Okay, we're having some tech difficulties, it would appear right now. Alright, just one moment, everyone. Alright, we will be started in just a moment. Thank you, Ethan, very cool, very cool. Basically, what we are going to be doing today is we are going, to be looking at the results, that we have so far. There have been quite a few developments, as you all probably know. And we're going to be looking at those developments, sort of from a as nonpartisan as possible lens and try and figure out what is actually happening. Okay. In the meantime, however, we are going to take a short intermission while the members of our panel, or member, or two maybe, of our panel join. All right. We have our first panel member who has just joined. You hear me? Take that as a no. Oh, I cannot hear you if you're saying anything. Might want to check your audio, Anton. Great. While Anton is resolving his audio problems, we're just going to go over our key race projections, because these are all pretty important. First of which is that Joe Biden has won the state of Wisconsin. In accordance with the call by the Associated Press, we have made the call here as well. The same story in Michigan. Joe Biden is the projected winner of their 16 electoral votes, again in accordance with the Associated Press call. The story is the exact same in Arizona. The Associated Press thought that Biden's lead in Maricopa County was big enough to carry him to the state. It would appear that that's true, because they have called the race for Joe Biden there. And I'm going to go, actually, now to 270 to win. And we are going to, one of the first things we may be doing is we may be exploring possible outcomes. Okay. So, moving on, if this will load, we're going to take a look at the presidential race. The New York Times has not called Arizona for Biden yet. However, we are confident enough, as is the Associated Press, to call it. Michigan has flipped, as has Wisconsin. And Democrats are looking in a good position right now to pick up the White House. With the addition of Arizona, Democrats only need to win one more of the additional 4 states, Nevada, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and or Georgia. And all of these states other than I'd say North Carolina, are looking like Democrats could pull off a win there. Take, for example, Georgia. The margin in the state has closed rapidly within the last 24 hours from a 15-point lead to a single-point lead. That's quite drastic. Okay, our panel member is rejoining. We'll see what goes on with that. The next state we're going to be looking at is North Carolina. Like I said, I don't think Biden's going to win. However, there is a significant portion of outstanding vote in Mecklenburg County. As you can see, a very solid blue area. Biden leads by 35 points in the vote here. There's also, unless they've counted it, nope, in Wake County, which is Raleigh, still a significant chunk of the outstanding vote, about 6%. You'll notice that the vote everywhere else is entirely counted, at least almost. And that's pretty significant because that means that Biden, although not having a great shot at North Carolina, still has a shot at North Carolina. Moving on to Pennsylvania, Donald Trump's margin has been cut in half as of recently. Looks like Northampton, which every candidate who has won Pennsylvania has won Northampton County, just flipped blue fairly recently. Biden is picking up steam in Pittsburgh. His lead has expanded quite a bit. Moving on. Michigan. Biden's lead has been steadily expanding throughout the day, mostly because he has recovered quite a bit in Detroit, matching about Clinton margins. In addition to that, he's doing quite well in Ann Arbor, Livingston County. He flipped Kent County just now, which is a significant development. Wisconsin, Biden's not doing great in Green Bay, or really any of these areas he would normally need to lead in. However, he is making up ground in the Milwaukee suburbs, which obviously are still overwhelmingly Republican. However, the margin has closed quite a bit, and that was obviously key to Biden winning the state. Right now, he's a narrow 0.6% lead. I don't expect that to change much, maybe a couple more points, as in decimal points in Biden's direction. Maybe he can get it up to 1%. But it's still a lot of uncertainty in a lot of these states. Okay, now we are going to readmit Anton. We're going to see whether we can hear him or not. Your audio did not connect, it would appear. Oh, there we are. Oh, I still can't hear you. Wow, this is great.
Can you hear me now?
Yes!
Okay, with my headphones.
Okay.
I apologize.
No worries. How's it going?
It is going. It's going.
It's
I
going.
finished all my homework and we begin this discussion.
Right. Yeah, so... Wait, I'm sorry, what?
Sent Leo the code. Don't know where he is.
Okay, well, I'm talking to him right now. He says thanks, so I guess that means he got it. My first question is going to be directed at you. Obviously, I explained what I'm seeing, a lot of uncertainty across the board. Would you say that's a accurate, probably, description of what's going on? And who would you say is favored?
Uncertainty is the name of the game at this point. I definitely see paths to victories on both ends at this point, really, because all the big states that you would predict Biden would win and would handily take over the election, like Florida or Texas, people were predicting if he could take either of those, he'd take the election, which would be true. But he didn't take either state. Both of those states went to Trump, and they were big victories for the Republican Party. So now it's all up to the states of Nevada is the big one everyone's got their eye on, but there's also Pennsylvania, Georgia, North Carolina, and Alaska, if I'm not concerned.
Yes, Alaska is too early to call right now.
But keep in mind, Joe Biden has 264 of his current 270 electoral votes, meaning that if he wins any state besides Alaska, which honestly, I don't think he was going to win anyway. I think that that will be enough to secure the presidency, at least points-wise. But I do
Yeah.
think that it is very uncertain because Nevada, the one that everyone has their eyes on, that is a very close and tight race that could go either way at this point. Pennsylvania is another toss-up.
Yeah.
Georgia will go red. I feel like Biden still has like a slight favorable advantage in the fact that he does in fact have 264 electoral votes, so it'll be easier for him to win.
Yeah.
But I'm not making the calls just yet.
Yeah, I agree completely. A little update on Nevada. Most of the outstanding vote is, chances are, looking at these numbers, it's going to be in Clark County. And that is a big deal for Biden because a lot of the outstanding vote is going to be part of that 90,000 vote firewall that I've mentioned time and time again, as I've cited as the reason that I think Biden's going to win Nevada. And I would wager a lot of the vote remaining that's outstanding is mail-ins. And you see...
I was going to ask, actually, can I say
Yeah,
something?
go ahead.
Of the remaining states that still have yet to call anything, are mail-in ballots still the remainder of the uncounted votes in Nevada, Pennsylvania, etc.?
Entirely. They're all all in-person votes have been counted or virtually all.
Okay, so that's good news for Biden because, as we know, mail-in votes tend to lean left.
Yes. That's definitely, they are leaning heavily left. Anton,
Right.
sorry to interrupt you. Quick question. Can you send Leo the password? Because I don't want to show it to the entire stream, you know.
What is the password? Like, what part of it is it? Like, what part of the link?
It's not in the link. Go into the upper left corner, and you'll see a little I that says meeting information, and you'll see it there.
Okay, I'll send them the passcode.
All right. Perfect.
All right.
So big news in Pennsylvania is that a lot of commentators are saying they expect Biden to win the state. That is as Trump's margin has been decreased and decreased more and more over time. Still, large amounts of the votes not counted in these blue counties. By the way, Chester County just flipped to Biden fairly recently, I believe. Bucks County looks to be on the verge of flipping, only a 1% difference. That would be quite significant.
Yeah, I think that, like, my initial hot take was obviously Blexus, which didn't happen, as we know. But now, upon reevaluation, I think my real hot take is going to be Pennsylvania going blue, because I've talked to numerous people throughout the day. They are convinced that Pennsylvania is going to go for President Trump. I disagree with that, honestly, because as we've seen, again, the mail-in votes still haven't to be counted. The blue counties haven't been fully represented quite yet. Oh, there's Leo.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I still think that Pennsylvania has a strong shot at going blue, and that would secure the election for Biden.
The thing with that is that the only person who really knew what they were talking about, who thought Trump had Pennsylvania in the bag, was Miles. And as we've seen, his initial predictions went great, and then it just sort of went downhill, starting when he came on the stream yesterday.
Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan.
Hopefully he's been right.
Yep, Maine and New Hampshire, he also got those two wrong. And he's about to get Nevada wrong.
Also, can we just throw any sense of centrism out the window in this discussion? Because we all know that you're the only true centrist here.
Okay, fair enough. You know what? I'm the moderator, right?
He is very much a Biden supporter.
Yeah, well, that doesn't mean I'm not a centrist.
He has centrist ideals.
Yeah.
I thought you meant political. Okay.
No.
Yeah.
Well, yes, I am a politically centrist Biden supporter.
Yeah. The thing is, though, like, yesterday you were like, we are 3 centrists and 1 liberal when referring to you, Ian, Michael, and Ethan.
Yeah.
When in reality, Ian definitely leaned heavily left.
Yeah, he is actually centrist. He's just aggressively anti-Trump, sort of in the mold where I am, except he went more along the route of CNN commentator as opposed to Steve Kornacki.
Yeah, that's accurate.
And I just cement my place as a conservative, despite being more liberal than anyone else on the call, save maybe Ethan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm since everyone else has made their political views clear, I'm moderate Democrat and Biden supporter.
Yeah, I don't think it's pretty hard to find a Trump supporter and elections analyst in the local area. I will say that.
Local area. This is a very liberal area.
Yeah.
It's most conservatives that I know are people that I'm related to outside of the area. So
Yeah, that's actually the same with me. Most of the conservatives I know are either friends from elsewhere or my family in Missouri. I mean, that's pretty much it, you know?
let's try to keep our political views outside of this because
Oh,
this
yes,
isn't
of course.
all-
All right.
This is predictions and stuff.
So,
As possible.
moving on, we're taking a big look at Georgia now. The New York Times is a tiny bit behind. There's a 0.9% difference between the two candidates. Oh, wait, no, I read that wrong. It's 0.8. Never mind. The New York Times is right on the ball. A 0.8% difference with still a significant chunk of Fulton County, DeKalb County, Rockdale County, Clayton County. A lot of these blue counties still have a significant chunk of the vote outstanding. I think Georgia, this is my hot take, I think it's going to be decided like within 0.25%.
Okay. Hold on, James. Is there a website I can use that doesn't block subscription because I'm trying to get into New York Times? And
Use Politico if you can't use the New York Times. They're pretty decent.
Politico?
Yeah, Politico. Or I don't think the Associated Press requires a subscription.
I'll try Associated Press because I know that one updates really quickly.
Okay.
So I take it Nevada is in the bag. It's definitely a Biden victory.
I would not say in the bag quite yet because we still have to. They're going to release another batch of Clark County votes at 9 a.m. and by then I think we'll probably, unless Trump outperforms, we're probably going to know who's won Nevada. Which,
Nevada,
by the
What
way,
about Michigan and Wisconsin.
uh,
How are they doing?
well, Biden has been called the winner in both. He is appearing to expand his lead in Michigan, might reach it to about 3 points, which is a lot better than a lot of Democrats hoped earlier in the day. But it's still underwhelming compared to where the polls had him. And I think one thing that really deserves to be mentioned is that this election has killed the polling industry, with the exception of two pollsters. One was Trag, which was the Republican pollster everyone said, oh, they're so full of crap. Well, it turns out they were right in a lot of states. They look like they're going to miss Georgia, I believe, but that's really it.
Georgia, I still think is going to go red.
No, I know, but I think they underestimated Biden a bit.
I'm not saying it's not going to be close because it is going to be close. But
Yeah.
I definitely think that I still think that President Trump.
Honestly, looking at the numbers, I'd say I'd give it a 50-50.
I can see that. I see where you're coming from on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, I agree with you on the whole polling thing because, like, the one thing I said coming into this election, because people would ask me who I thought would win, I always said I'm not going to make a comment because I remember 2016. Everyone around me was predicting Senator Clinton.
Secretary.
Was with 2016, I know, is that the polls sort of would have survived because they said it was a very weird election, and it was.
Yeah,
But
and they were
black
able
judges.
to correct for their errors by and large in 2018, which really makes this part more devastating to them, because they screwed up again. And they can't say it's because they didn't weigh by education this time, which was responsible for the 2016 polling error. I think personally the error this time was most likely because, those problems they have polling Spanish-speaking Latinos.
Yes.
I think that Biden's underperformance with Latinos, especially in places like the Rio Grande Valley, could have meant that Trump's support was underestimated. I can't really explain it in the Rust Belt, however. It might just be... I mean, I kind of doubt it's silent Trump supporters. It's more likely methodology issues. But the polling industry has two options, and that's either correct those methodology issues and before the next elections in 2021, or fade into irrelevancy minus a couple of partisan pollsters that got it right.
Yeah, the thing with the polls is, like as I said, I remembered 2016, but it also seemed a bit odd in 2018 when they were mostly correct. But looking at this specifically, I definitely feel like there is some sort of margin for error that will always pop up. There's always going to be a margin for error, especially in early predictions. That's just a given.
Yeah.
But the fact they are this consistently off definitely does show that they need to revamp their strategy, or maybe it's just a curse of bad luck whenever they're predicting an election
Definitely.
involving Donald Trump and someone who was previously close with a Democratic president.
Yeah, I know. It's especially when you look at Wisconsin. This is now 2 years in a row that there's been a 7-point polling error outside the margin of error in favor of the Republicans.
What do you mean in favor of the? You mean that the Republicans want?
Biden was supposed to win Wisconsin by 8. He's up by 0.6. We'll round it up to 1 to be nice to the polling industry, and he's You know.
Well, he's still projected to win Wisconsin, though.
Oh
correct?
yeah, well because all the votes been counted. I mean, it's over.
So he 100% got Wisconsin.
There
Yeah,
is no
sorry,
projection,
he is not
it's
the
not.
projected winner. A little
I don't know
correction.
which states are finished counting their ballots and which ones aren't. All I know is that Nevada, Pennsylvania, and all the other states that have yet to give in are taking their sweet.
Oh yes, they are. One
Right,
little
Pennsylvania was gonna
correction I have to
say
make.
Nevada?
Oh, sorry. What were you saying?
Like I knew that Pennsylvania was going to take its sweet time when it came to this. Like everyone around me was telling me this, and I'm not at all surprised that they're taking this long. But Nevada taking this long was a bit surprising to me, as well as North Carolina.
I think because literally everyone in Nevada was surprised at how important the state became.
Well, the state was Trump was supposed to win in 2016, and the Democrats outperformed the polls there. I kind of doubt that happens again. I think at best Democrats will maybe match their polling. A 5.6 win for Biden is not totally out there. It's probably pretty unlikely though. I think if Biden is to win Nevada, it's looking more at a 3 to 4 point range, depending on how those mail-ins break.
You guys expect Biden to win Nevada?
Yes, I do.
I think it's possible. I still think that there's a chance for President Trump to pull ahead there, but I think Vice President Biden has a
See, Nevada's the one state of those four that I'm really confident in who I think is going to win, and it's all because it all goes down to Clark County. It is the Democrats' Florida. No matter how hard the Republicans try to flip Nevada, they will not flip it. GOP wave year doesn't matter. Nevada's going blue because Democrats have that firewall in Clark County that keeps holding the vote for them. And you saw in 2016, Hillary Clinton, she did terribly in other parts of the state. She barely won Reno. But she was able to win by about 3%, more like 2.5, because she was able to drive up enough votes in Clark County. Take a look again at Jackie Rosen in 2018. Her entire victory was off the backs of the people in Clark County because she won the county by 10 points.
So is this like Clark County? Is this like how New York, like most of the state itself is red, but because New York City is such a large part of it and it's blue, that makes the whole state blue?
Not entirely, because actually if you were to remove New York City from New York, it would still narrowly have voted for Secretary Clinton. While Nevada, if you remove
It's just
Clark...
that New York City is, I think, probably of a single group of counties, the strongest firewall in the nation.
Yes,
Trying
easily.
to flip New York, impossible, just because of New York
Other
City.
than California, maybe, where they have Las Vegas, San Francisco, etc.,
I
etc.
meant from a single point, because you've got a bunch of cities in California.
Oh yeah, that's
and
true.
obviously, California generally will trend blue, but I'm saying that with New York State, it is conceivable to get all of New York State except New York City. It is conceivable, unlikely, but conceivable that definitely a very moderate Republican might do that. They will still.
I don't know about Westchester, but I get your general point.
Maybe not Westchester.
Yeah, and I doubt Albany either. Like you'd have to do really freaking well, and the other parts of the state
yes,
too.
New York City, and I meant specifically New York City and its suburbs, which is just this impossible.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. And speaking of Westchester, little note. Mondaire Jones at one point was underperforming Biden by a whopping 20%. In our district, the one that we live in, New York 17th.
Westchester?
The 17th.
Oh, that one's Westchester, right?
Yeah, that's ours. Well, part of Westchester. It's Westchester and Rockland. And Trump's winning Rockland, by the way, right now.
Oh, okay. I was unaware of that. But one thing I found really interesting when looking at the polls by area as opposed to the states, like in the counties and that stuff, Trump is winning a very large amount of counties in states that are trended blue, mostly because of one pattern that I've noticed, and I feel like, James has definitely noticed in the past. I feel like we might have discussed this.
Yeah.
In the rural areas or the areas with low populations, which there are a lot of them, that's why the country seems so red when you look at them by county.
Yeah.
Is that they tend to vote for President Trump. However, Vice President Biden has a much bigger lead in cities, which count for way more of the vote and will typically trend states blue. Look at New York, where so much of upstate.
Yeah, I mean Biden is really flopping upstate right now, at least.
Yeah, upstate is a red. It's a wash of red. But
yeah.
The problem is that just because of New York City, just how enormous the population is trying to influence.
And one. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Leo.
Trying to really influence New York State, that upstate New York really has very little possibility to, just because of sheer population number. It's
yeah. That's something with cities in general. Like with the big cities, they typically have a big control over the state itself. Look at California, for instance.
That's a few cities, though, not one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's multiple cities there. It's different from New York City, where New York City has a big monopoly over the state at this point.
Yeah, that's actually an excellent way of putting it. Also, noteworthy is that it has a congressional monopoly. I believe probably a supermajority of New York's congressional districts are entirely contained within the city. So 66% or more, I'd imagine.
Even if you gerrymandered it for a Republican side, it would be near impossible.
Yeah.
Just because so much of New York City.
Yeah. Very quickly, we're going to take a look at the House. We can resume dialogue on the presidential race in a moment. The House has not been so great for the Democrats. As you can see, Vicky Spartz and Peter Mayer have both been projected the winners in their respective races. Those were both races that Democrats hoped and polled in favor of winning. That is another Republican gain from the Libertarian Party because Justin Amash, former Republican, switched his seat to the Libertarian Party due to his opposition to President Trump and his support of impeachment. We're now going in. We're going to look at, there are a couple close races here. Haley Stevens has just pulled ahead. This is significant because Republicans were leading here early on. And I'm wondering how much she wins by, because obviously Democrats have recovered significantly in the state of Michigan. Also, in Pennsylvania, Connor Lamb and Sean Parnell, they are tied. Exactly. I would expect Lamb to pull it off. He was starting the night with a 13-point deficit, which is now down to a tie. And I think he's going to win, especially since the absentee ballots that are yet to be counted are going to break his way. Pennsylvania's 10th district, however, things do not look quite as rosy for Eugene De Pasquale. He was a great candidate, might have just been running in the wrong year. We don't know, though. There's a lot of unknowns. We still have to count more votes.
Just out of curiosity, just because I'm a little bit ignorant in this, how much can you stop? Since Pennsylvania is taking a while, I've heard people say that President Donald Trump will just close the vote counting in Pennsylvania. Is that in any way a possibility?
Not by his own authority. He would have to get a court to mandate the ballots to stop being counted, which seems kind of unlikely. Yes, it would be the Supreme Court, I believe.
In that case, I think he has a shot at doing so because the Supreme Court is conservative.
I don't know. I don't know what basis they would necessarily stop ballot counting under, and it's kind of like, it's like he has to do it like now or never, you know?
Yeah, I guess so. But I would also like to talk about how I'm looking at projections for the House in terms of parties.
Yeah.
Currently, it's the Democratic Party is 14 seats away from securing the majority with 204.
Yeah.
Yes. Do you think that is a realistic possibility for them to get that majority?
House Democrats?
Yeah.
Definitely. I'd say they're favored to hold the majority. However, another point that needs to be brought up is that Pelosi's term as Speaker, I think it's increasingly evident that it may or may not be over now.
Yeah, I think that Pelosi's term is going to
yeah,
diminish.
after Democrats in the House did really bad, a lot of them, especially progressives, just saying, underperformed, not just 2018 totals, but also compared to Biden.
Progressives in general seem to be doing pretty poorly this year.
Yeah, generally, I'd say other than Biden looking strong, it's a pretty bad night for Democrats.
Yeah. And in terms of the Senate, I think we established that I personally think that the Senate is going to stay red.
Yeah, especially with Collins winning. You know, Democrats don't have a realistic path forward, I wouldn't say.
Yeah, overall, this seems to be a good night for the Republicans in terms of the Senate. And in terms of the House, I feel like the Democrats will pull out a victory, however narrow it is, because there's still 4 seats remaining and they need considerably less.
Yeah. Democrats do look like they have a good shot at gaining Georgia's 2nd district, which seems increasingly likely now to vote for Vice President Biden. Democrat Carolyn Bourdeaux has a 3-point lead with 95% of the vote counting. I only see these numbers getting better for her, but I don't know. We'll have to see.
That would actually be a significant number of those votes would have to be red for
Georgia's 7th. Yeah, and I don't see that. I realistically see her winning.
Like most of those, like a very large majority, actually. I think she's going to pull through there.
Candice Valenzuela is narrowly trailing her Republican opponent in Texas's 24th.
Yeah, this is definitely a very much more competitive thing. How much of those extra votes, a lot of them, I'm assuming mail-ins, just how much are they majority blue? Because if they are,
Yeah,
it is only 1%. So if a majority of that 6% is blue, she could pull ahead. But
definitely.
if she doesn't have enough of a majority there with the mail-ins, which I suppose is a little unlikely, but if she doesn't have a majority there, she could easily lose.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch. This is a rare opportunity Democrats still have to flip a House district, make up for their losses a little bit. We're now going to go to the state of California, where Democrats, at least initially, appear to be having a very strong night.
Well, it's California. So.
Yeah, even in Republican districts, though, Tom McClintock is only up 5 in his deep red district. This would be a major underperformance from 2018, where he won by, I believe, around 10 points.
I still think he's going to hold on to his lead, though.
Oh, yeah, no, I agree. I think he's going to win, but it's concerning for Republicans.
The problem is, how much do Republicans really need to win California?
Well, their path to a House majority goes right through a bunch of California House districts.
Yeah, California is definitely going to be a make or break for Republicans, personally, I think.
Yeah, Republicans hoped in the 10th district to upset Representative Josh Harder. However, he appears to be on an easy path to re-election. California Democrats at this one are breathing sort of a sigh of relief.
Yeah, the West Coast is definitely a lot of what Democrats hope to achieve in the West Coast is being achieved, unlike in the South and the East Coast, where
and to a certain degree, the Midwest and Rust Belt.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, I'd say this election is so split that who you would say win the election is just, I think, very determined on the president. Because although yes, polls did project that the blue wave was going to be much larger than it was, I'd say that since we have the status quo here, the red, assuming they win the presidency, is basically one. Blue, if they win the presidency, is one, just because they have not lost House majority, and although they have gained Senate majority, it's not like they ever had that. Yeah. So I'd say that a lot is actually riding for which major party will have by far the most influence in who becomes the next president, which is always true, but I'm saying especially here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like that especially is going to trend, and I feel like I had a discussion with people about this. Now, not only is there the tendency for many voters to vote directly down the ticket for their party, whichever party they identify with, that is definitely I don't even think I need a study to prove that. That is probably historically proven. But there's also I feel like parties in general have a really big impact on Senate and House votes, because a lot of people seem to align the political views of the party's leader, in this case the nominee, with those of the members of Congress who are running for that party. So I feel like a lot of Trump voters would end up going for Republican candidates, and a lot of Biden voters would go for Democratic candidates for similar reasons. Like if they identify with a certain party, they're more likely to vote that way down the ticket, and that's kind of like showing the correlations that we're seeing here.
All right. One little note. Down to ballot Republicans do not appear to have saved the Republican chances at winning California's 49th. A recent call now has Mike Levin winning the district. No surprise here. This was considered a solid Democratic district. However, it was on an upset watch, in my opinion, just because, there's...
Sorry, it's just that looks to be in a red majority, and it's...
Yes, I'll go to that in a second.
Counties. The one right above that.
Michelle Steele is leading Harley Ruda in California's 48th. This is probably the only part of California that has actually trended more Republican.
I feel like she'll hold on to the lead with 94% of the estimated votes already having.
Well, again, it's way too close to call. People said the same thing about.
It's 1% difference, and you've got 6% left.
Yeah.
Fair enough, but I feel like actually no, with the mail-in votes there could be. Yeah, it's definitely too close to call.
One thing I am somewhat confident on the underdog in, and this is probably going to come and it's gonna make me look stupid. But I think Gil Cisneros is going to pull out a win in California's 39th. You saw in 2018 this exact same thing happened. Young Kim was leading, and Cisneros pulled out a narrow win. I think it's going to be much closer this time, mostly because Cisneros has shot himself in the foot over and over again. But I think the district's partisanship alone will get him over the finish line.
I mean, considering how close the lead is, it's less than 1%, and with more than 10% of the votes still not having been counted, plus mail-in ballots, I feel like Cisneros can pull a victory there.
Yeah, and also one thing to note is that at least in 2018, the mail vote, which is the vote that is being excluded right now, was very Democratic.
Well, mail votes in general tend to go Democratic.
Yeah,
regardless.
especially this year. Speaking of
Especially this year.
area where mail votes could ruin Republican chances, another great shot Democrats have at flipping a House seat comes in California's 25th district. It looks right now like Christy Smith, who has won the worst campaign of any House person in a competitive any House candidate in a competitive race, at least for a Democrat. She's actually leading right now. I can't say I'm shocked because I think everyone thought Biden was going to win this district pretty easily, and I think she's going to owe him a big thank you because let's be honest, he's pulling her over the finish line in all likelihood.
We're pulling a lot of people over the finish line, it seems.
Yes, it is. Like everywhere, he is pulling House incumbents over the finish line.
Yes. If it wasn't for Biden's, I mean, Biden didn't have the best night last night, but if it wasn't for some of the victories he had, it would be a major red wave. I think that the red might have even won House majority if it wasn't for Biden.
Yeah. Gary Peters has now moved into a 1-point lead after Republicans, and apparently John James declared victory. John James is a very strong candidate, obviously. He was leading even while Biden was narrowly ahead. He was ahead of Peters. A lot of people remarked that he had been sort of caught sleeping at his desk. Gary Peters was not adequately prepared for such a strong challenge. He didn't, up until the end, he didn't really raise that much money. Half of the people in his state have no informed opinion on who he is. And I guess he owes a big freaking thank you to Joe Biden, because I guarantee you that is who is pulling him across the line right here.
Yeah,
especially with Biden's recent projected win over Michigan.
Yeah, and you can see he is noticeably underperforming Biden regardless. But I think it is, without Biden winning Michigan, Peters would be done.
I'm surprised the Republicans declared victory so soon, though.
Yeah.
Where did they declare victory?
I believe John James either declared victory or insisted it was rigged. I'm not sure which, or if it was either or both.
I
thought you meant in some national election.
Oh no, Trump declared victory, I believe, this morning.
What just happened?
Speaking of insisting that it was rigged, do you guys expect President Trump, assuming he loses, to not concede or wait?
He will not concede.
Knowing the president, I know that I'm very confident that, especially at first, he will immediately demand that it's rigged. Whether his words will have anything to do with his administration's actions, I don't know. If Biden wins Pennsylvania, I think he won't have enough grounds to try to over-impeach the vote, and I'm pretty sure we'll essentially have what are they called? A Twitter storm of Donald Trump cursing out the country before, as you said, probably fleeing due to several accusations that have gone under the rug and some things. It is entirely possible things will go poorly if he is not in office for him.
I expect him also to potentially declare victory early, President Trump. I can see that happening. Maybe it might not happen if the lead doesn't get wide. The gap doesn't get closed too much.
Yeah.
But I can see that gap getting closed, and I can see him starting to think that he will declare. Actually, did he declare victory early or something?
President Trump?
Yeah.
Yeah, he declared victory this morning. He's also declared victory in Michigan, which he is projected to lose, as well as Pennsylvania.
Which is a toss-up still.
Yeah.
If he does, I do believe that if under any circumstance Nevada is called towards Republicans, he will claim total victory, even if he loses Pennsylvania.
100%. I expect that to happen, knowing President Trump.
But again, who knows if Nevada will go red? In fact, it's projected blue. And again, essentially, Pennsylvania is I suppose not really all that surprisingly, but Pennsylvania is really important. It always is, but now it literally very much rides on Pennsylvania, both who actually wins and then who claims victory.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing is, I was one prediction I had going into this was that if Trump won Florida, which he did, that Pennsylvania would definitely be one of the biggest deciding factors in this election, and this is proven to be true. Even though Nevada is the one everyone's watching, I feel like people should be paying attention to both Nevada and Pennsylvania because I feel like they're the two really big states that could throw the election either way.
I think most people are paying attention to Nevada just because Pennsylvania is too slow.
Yeah, because like let's compare it to other states that haven't declared a winner yet. Alaska, I'm 100% expecting to go for President Trump. I
Yeah.
don't think actually. Is there any circumstance by which that would actually change anything? Alaska declaring
it's 3 votes. Even if Biden did win it, he still wouldn't be able to cross the line like he would with any other state if he won it.
Yeah. I don't believe there's literally any possible combination of states going for either side at this point that Alaska would matter at all.
If
Keep in mind, sorry to cut you off, James. But
no, it's fine. Go ahead.
But then there's Georgia, which we're still on the fence about. I think it'll go for Trump. I also think North Carolina will. So
it is predicted red. It would sincerely surprise me if it went blue.
Georgia or North Carolina?
Both.
Yeah,
they are very close to some of Trump's strongest states.
I agree with you, especially with both of them being situated in the southern part of the United States, which is where Trump tends to excel.
Especially the southeast, specifically the southeast.
Yes, I agree with you, especially following everything that happened yesterday that made things look like 2016 all over again, as many have dubbed it. So I think that Pennsylvania and Nevada are the 2 big states that we need to watch out for.
Yeah. I would agree. One little note about I forgot which state I was gonna bring up. Oh well.
Nevada, Alaska.
Alaska. That's right. The Democratic Senate candidate, or rather, he's an independent, Al Gross, has said based off of the results so far, he expects to win.
He expects to win? That's interesting, considering how red...
yeah, and how the fact he's down like 60-40, I'm pretty sure. If not more.
That's a big margin.
How many mail-ins does he expect to get? I mean, I suppose...
Oh, well, I guess it's because a lot of the really red parts of the state are reporting at a higher rate. Oh, we have to start a new Zoom. You'll have to invite me. Leo.
I can start it.
Thank
you.
you.
Is your time running out?
Yep.
Okay, Leo, just text me the Zoom link and I'll join.
Of course. If it is the same to you, I'll send you a picture of the meeting information because I don't actually know how to send a link.
Okay, yeah, that works. Just like, okay.
Fantastic. I will begin. How much longer should I stay in this Zoom before I leave?
5 minutes.
Okay, we can do 5 minutes of commentary. Not like there is.
Yeah.
People, friends of mine, I've noticed a lot of what they fear is definitely Trump upsets, and I've actually heard, just to put this idea out here, an idea that assuming projected victory happens with Biden winning by literally 1 vote, I suppose this is a bit of a drastic opinion. It's not mine, but someone saying that they fear that one of the electoral college hosts will be assassinated, which sounds insane.
That would not mean that it goes to Trump. I believe they replace the elector in that scenario.
Okay, perhaps that is true, but the person that expressed these thoughts to me thought that it would fall to the House, but then when it does this, it actually goes by state basis.
Yes. Which is an unlikely scenario with the numbers we're looking at, but you never know, right?
I have a question about a possible scenario.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah. So we've established that there's a possibility that if this goes in the projected 270 to 268 victory for Vice President Biden,
yeah,
then Trump will try to contest it somehow. How would he contest it, and do you think he would be successful in contesting it and securing the election in his favor by doing so?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question, please?
How would President Trump contest the Joe Biden win if he were to?
Mostly through recounts and trying to get ballots thrown out. Recounts would happen,
like the House
but
or Senate or Supreme Court or something.
Wait, I'm
Supreme
sorry.
Court.
Yeah, that would go to the Supreme Court.
And would he be successful?
Probably not.
Yeah, I think the whole conservative majority thing was kind of what scared me about that whole thing.
Yeah,
because
I mean, I think at best he gets Alito, Thomas, and maybe Kavanaugh to vote with him on stopping
But,
ballots.
like with the very rapid appointment of Justice Amy Coney Barrett, I feel like that definitely had something to do with, like, maybe Trump was trying to prepare for something like this to happen just so he could have an easy Trump
I
card.
actually think that appointment was more because he was because he knew that it's entirely possible he would lose the election, and definitely the red control of the Senate desperately pushed him to do that, because if Biden was elected, they would have to allow a blue person through, because unlike with President Barack Obama, Biden would have 4 years. The idea of them trying to hold off a nominee for 4 years is almost comical, that they would manage to hold this off.
Yeah,
It would cause an enormous uproar.
That would be something else entirely. Like the whole Justice Scalia thing in 2016 was a complete mess. And at first I thought it had something to do with hypocrisy of the Republican Party, with them not allowing Barack Obama to admit anybody and admitting Justice Barrett so quickly. Honestly, I feel like, yes, there is a claim to some form of bias there. Absolutely, there is.
Oh, it's not a claim to bias. It is. The question is, if the bias is so great that you might believe that it is anti-democratic, or, I mean, if you want to go extremely radical, straight up treason.
Yeah, I disagree with anything like on that level, because keep in mind, with the Republican, with a
I don't think it's
majority
treasonous by any means, but
with a majority Republican Senate, it's very hard to get a Democratic candidate over there, because whether we like it or not, both sides are very corrupt by the party over policy ideology, where they will likely just vote for whichever based on political party, rather than any sort of ideals or beliefs that the judge question would hold. And I don't really blame them for doing this. I think but I still think that it's not really fair,
it
because
is not healthy for a democracy to be.
definitely not healthy for a democracy, because I feel like collaboration would be necessary for a democracy between the two parties, as we've seen time and
What an incredible viewpoint! You think that a country has to work together to function? A government can't be fighting against itself.
I think that would be a good idea, but considering the massive split that has occurred over the past couple of years, we have quite possibly one of the most polarizing presidents in recent history, and
Yeah, that is true. That is true. He is, in recent history, he is the most polarizing president.
yeah, I don't think that's a particularly hot take on either side, but I definitely think that with the big split, Democrats, Republicans, they're basically at war with each other when it comes to much political control, much ideology. There's a lot that they disagree on pretty much everything, pretty much just because it was supported by someone who they are not affiliated with. And because of this massive divide, little has been able to get done in certain scenarios. And I feel like that definitely leads to the Supreme Court debacle and much else that has been going on in Washington.
All right. Quick note: Trump's lead in Georgia has tightened to about 38,000 votes, with many outstanding in DeKalb, other blue-leaning areas, as well as quite a few in Fulton County.
By tightened, do you mean his lead has weakened, or his lead has increased?
Trump's lead has weakened.
Trump's lead this weekend? Okay.
It is within a percentage point right now.
So do you think that Biden...
If he loses Georgia, the election's almost over.
The election is over if he loses Georgia. Let's be real. I mean,
With the
Also, I fear for what will happen to Georgia.
yeah,
Just
that's gonna be.
Every state near it would isolate themselves from it, economically.
Yeah.
The Deep South is so reliant. It's not the Deep South, but it's so reliant on each other economically. I fear for the policies that would come into play.
Well, it still has a Republican governor, right? It's not like the
It
Democrats are taking over the entire state. And even
I
so,
was more concerned, I suppose, about what gerrymandering policies would come into play.
well, Georgia's over. Georgia's gonna be gerrymandered. It's just gonna.
Most states are. I'm saying that if Trump actually loses Georgia, I fear for the kind of voter suppression that will be enacted to try to retain an iron.
Well, the
grip
only
on-
issue is that Georgia's like the voter suppression state. I don't see how they can do it much more. I mean, constitutionally.
Yes, that hasn't stopped. Let's be a little partisan here. That has not stopped the South before.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I definitely feel like there's definitely going to be some sort of big divide no matter who wins. I'm not just saying in Georgia. I'm talking about the whole country. The whole country is going to be at an unrest for an unprecedented amount of time because, as me and Leo have discussed, there is a big divide with the parties, and I feel like with an election as close as this is, there's going to be a lot of unrest, and it is going to be very interesting to watch and also very uncomfortable because of how at odds the two sides are with each other.
Quote, arguably the greatest president in the history of this United States. A house divided against itself cannot stand. And I feel that with the current political climate, it is a powdering keg waiting to explode. I think that Biden's more moderate approach and his attempts to sort of try to lead all of America combined might stall that. Obviously, I think by far the thing we have to watch out for is a contested election. That I don't know if there's really any way I could think of Trump winning and Biden contesting it, but that could be a spark that could lead to horrific actions on either side if essentially one side believes that they have been usurped and that democracy has been overruled. That is how we start to get on the grounds of coups and revolution.
Yes. Honestly, it's going to be pretty dangerous either way, and I feel like the main reason why I found Biden so interesting was because of his view of, how he's like icon. I don't know if it's an iconic quote just yet, but it's something I've heard him say a lot. Is that Trump views everything in terms of red states and blue states, and he is trying to view everything in terms of a United States of America, which I definitely see where he's coming from, and I support that ideology. It's just that because I would love to see the country united, as I'm sure pretty much the entire country would. But
I'm sorry, I will have to leave and start a new minute because we are running out of time. I will send you the information shortly.
Yep.
Please finish the sentence.
Okay. We are going to take a quick intermission before everything is resumed.
But hold on. Let's just make sure we can hear him. James, can you hear us?
Yep, all good.
Okay, so if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to continue my point from the previous Zoom call.
No objections here.
Okay, great. So as I previously said, Biden is fixated on the point that Trump sees everything in terms of red states and blue states, while he wants to lead a United States of America, which, I support that ideology. I think every American would love to see the country united because that's definitely good for the country. However, I question how realistic that is because keep in mind there's this big divide, and while I definitely think that he will at least try to get stuff done, the divide in itself will be a self-fulfilling prophecy in preventing him from getting that much done because of how much the party over policy ideology continues to dominate the minds of a lot of the government.
Interesting is that we are reaching a breaking point, obviously, is that when this started about 4 years ago, what I actually thought, which would lead us to the breaking point, which would heighten which would raise the stakes enough that we literally are at the moment where people are wondering if there will be a civil war, that is actually a thought in people's minds.
I've seen that thought in people's minds on social media.
And I was actually absolutely sure. What I thought what would happen is that it would be based on climate change and the economic, the economic sort of clique that a lot of people, that essentially I was sure that the idea of this fervent and, in my opinion, I'm going to be partisan here. It's global warming, folks. It's going to doom the world. The economic cult that essentially is doing anything it can in the pretense of saving the economy, whilst this other camp literally believes that the world is dying, and that I was almost certain. Yeah, I was certain that was going to be the spark that might lead us to that, where both sides become so literally afraid of the country or the planet dying that is how we get to this massive butting heads. But it's actually social rights. That, especially in the past few months, it's been social rights movements and a police response to that, and the defending of both the protesters and the police. That's actually that has actually been this big stressor. I'm genuinely surprised that it would be police funding and systemic racism that would cause this. By no means am I saying that these aren't incredible issues, that systemic racism isn't a horrific fault in our nation. I'm just saying I was surprised that since it's not the thing that sort of people believe we're all going to die.
Yeah, I don't think that it's going to go to absolute doomsday. I don't have that sort of pessimistic mindset. I definitely think that there's going to be strong unrest. I don't think civil war is necessarily in our budget yet. It's in our area of consideration just yet.
Civil war is perhaps a bit strong, and I don't think that civil war will start in the next 4 years of presidency unless things significantly change. Ultimately, without widespread economic absolute crisis, that we are in a recession, but assuming the only way I could really see a civil war happening soon is if Trump essentially loses the race, gains the presidency by essentially finding a way to get through the vote, and then the depression, that the economic strife that comes after the coronavirus would be so catastrophic that essentially that is the only way I could see a civil war happening in the next few years. Is that if Trump is the only person that I could see between the two candidates that could be viewed from this current output as an undemocratically elected person directly responsible for an economic crash.
Yeah, and I definitely I see where you're coming from with that, because keep in mind Biden is still the projected winner, and if he does win and then Trump contests it and comes out successful, there is going to be outrage. That is indisputable, knowing our country and knowing everything that's going on.
Protesters have already started to organize. The Black Lives Matter protests have literally started to organize to start massive. I don't know how organized it is yet, but I do believe that Black Lives Matter protesters have already started planned, essentially, if Trump does not concede the vote, to stage enormous protests in Washington, D.C.
It is also noteworthy that Trump supporters right now are trying to forcibly prevent ballots from being counted in Detroit.
Yeah, I've seen numerous. If you wouldn't mind, I'd like to draw attention to something that I saw in, I believe it was Florida, on Instagram, where registered Democratic voters were getting emails from, I believe it was an unspecified group of people.
It was.
That said that they were going to change their political party to Republican and vote for President Trump, or else actions will be taken to harm them, which I don't like. This is not being partisan. I don't think this is being partisan, but that is wrong. That is genuinely messed up.
Yeah, I agree.
And to be
how successful, just out of curiosity, is the voter suppression in Detroit?
Not at all, because the security guards are keeping them outside, and they just covered the windows.
Anyways, so to be partisan for a second, I think that if
For a second, this is clearly a nonpartisan stream. We have not expressed any views. Now, fun fact about me, I am authoritarian left, like very authoritarian left.
it's definitely not in a discussion.
See, you
but-
get to see my my nonpartisanship as demonstrated by the Klobuchar button pinned to my shirt.
Yes.
Yes.
So yes, I don't even know if this is being partisan necessarily, but I would just like to say that if Biden wins and then Trump contests and steals the presidency, or if Trump were to win and Biden contested and steal the presidency, which I see as far less likely.
Yeah.
I'm just saying this is a hypothetical.
Just because if Trump wins, he will, even ignoring like partisanship, if Trump wins, he has to do it by a significant margin. And on top of that, the main thing that might be contested here is the voters, the voting ballots. Like, that is the main thing that will be contested. And they are not in a red favor. So I don't see how Biden could, assuming if Biden loses like Nevada and he loses Pennsylvania, then Donald Trump.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, there is the option of if Biden somehow wins both North Carolina and Georgia, and then Trump wins Nevada and Pennsylvania, which
That's
would shock
exact
everyone.
opposite of what would happen, theory. But anyway,
That'd be quite the opposite.
Yeah.
yeah. Anyways, so the thing with that, I personally think that trying to like use outside parties to switch an election result is stupid. That's just my personal point of view.
It's
on
not
that.
stupid, it's authoritarianism. That's how we get to one-party states. That's not stupid. That is how we get to things like the rise of Nazi Germany, the rise of the communists in the Soviet Union, the rise of Fidel Castro, the rise of Generalissimo Francisco Franco.
And weren't all of these viewed as generally negative events in history?
Nah, well, actually, technically speaking, the Generalissimo Francisco Franco, honestly, is not that. Because it was the weird thing about the Civil War. It was a democratic state that basically got transformed into a civil war between a communist and a fascist state. So generally, and since Generalissimo Francisco Franco never actually conquered anyone, sorry, I'm just sorry to interrupt the stream with some fun historical knowledge. But
No.
Generalissimo Francisco Franco is the only fascist in history who basically just took over his country, didn't really destroy any, didn't like fight a bunch of democracies, just sort of took over his country and just sort of said, I'm done, and just held his country.
Yeah.
And Generalissimo Francisco Franco, he's actually kind of
I'm gonna butt in really quickly because there's something we need to address. We're going to be ending the stream relatively shortly because there's only so much we can do here. I want to, before we go, I want to get a prediction from each of you from the 4 states that are uncalled by the New York Times. That's Nevada, Arizona, actually, sorry, 5, because North Carolina.
Oh.
Yeah.
Arizona's still called by the New York Times, even though we've called it.
Nevada, Arizona, North Carolina, Georgia, and Pennsylvania. How do you think they're going to go?
Arizona, I believe, we called it already red, right?
For Biden. We've called Arizona for Biden.
Oh, I'm dead wrong. I apologize.
Yeah.
That's my
Biden.
prediction.
A surprising turnout of blue votes in Arizona.
The other, it was also North Carolina, you said?
Yes.
It's interesting, because I thought Georgia was more contested than North Carolina.
Georgia is, but North Carolina's not been called yet because there are still outstanding Democratic votes which could potentially flip the state, in theory.
Yeah, but couldn't that be the same thing for Georgia?
Well, Georgia, it's like they're about to possibly flip the state. Like, it's within, I think, like 0.6% or something crazy like that now.
So why did they call Georgia and not North Carolina?
They have not called Georgia.
Oh, I misheard you. I apologize.
Okay.
I think it's hard to really say. I'm pretty sure that Biden will win Arizona, will win Nevada. I'm sorry if I mentioned states that have already been called. And will obviously win the states that are sort of semi-contested in the Rust Belt, Michigan and Wisconsin, both win.
Yeah.
Called for him.
I think that Biden winning Georgia is almost wishful thinking, kind of like last night with Ohio, where it was like, oh my God, could Ohio flip? But I don't think it's likely.
Well,
North
here's the
Carolina, I
difference,
think-
though. The math is on the side of Joe Biden in Georgia, you could argue. Yeah. Because if absentees keep breaking the way they've been breaking, he'd win by 8,000 votes.
Wow. That Trump might contest that.
Yeah, oh no, it's going to be razor thin. I think Trump's going to win it, but it's going to be really close.
And if he doesn't, he's lost, obviously.
Yeah.
If he doesn't. And even if he'd love to contest it, he can't contest that many states at the same time.
Yeah, you can't. Moving on, really quickly, we're gonna get what Anton has to say on the matter.
That's great.
Before I do so, I would like to know how many states does Trump currently have contested?
Does Trump have to currently what?
How many has Trump contested at this point?
3, I believe. He's contested Wisconsin. He has contested Pennsylvania. He's contested Georgia.
Pennsylvania hasn't even, and Georgia haven't even made the
He's
polls,
trying to get the votes to stop being counted in both states.
which is authoritarian.
Yes, and it's going to fail.
It has not, yeah.
Anyways, so as far as my predictions, so we said Nevada, I feel like it could go 50-50. I'm leaning towards Biden there. Unsure, though.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the general consensus. Ignore the washing machine beeps. Then there's, what other states? Pennsylvania, I feel like this, as I've said before, I think that it could go blue, but it's another 50-50 state that has an even shot either way. As far as Georgia and North Carolina, I feel like they're both going to, I feel like they're both, okay, Georgia, I started to see your point as to how it could go blue.
Yeah.
I'm still leaning towards President Trump winning that state, but it could go 50-50. North Carolina, I am almost positive it's going to go for Trump. And Arizona, we've called for Biden, and I agree with that statement. I think it's going to go blue.
All right. Thank you, Anton. Thank you, Leo. Really great stream tonight. Don't leave the Zoom call just yet because I'm going to. Hopefully. Yep. All right. We're going to get out. We're going to go to YouTube. So thank you everyone for tuning in. We may or may not have a Friday video. Don't think so, because participation's pretty low on this one. There's really no point. Michael is not here. To the person in the chat who said that. What did you say, Leo?
Just out of curiosity, how many people are watching?
Oh, like 5 or something.
Oh.
Yeah.
The last night was definitely a lot more people involved.
Yeah. All right.
We got to a full 20.
Yep. So we're gonna wrap this up. Thank you all, and goodbye.
You said don't leave the Zoom meeting?